If you've ever been to Indonesia, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Those green jackets. Gojek drivers are absolutely everywhere. But what you might not realize is that Gojek is just one piece of a much, much bigger digital empire called GOTO. It's a company that's woven into the fabric of daily life, from ordering lunch to shopping online to paying your bills. But that kind of growth costs a staggering amount of money. So that leaves us with a big question. What exactly is GoTo, and is this massive, sprawling ecosystem actually built to last? All right, so here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at what this digital giant is actually made of. Then, we'll dive into how all its different parts work together, which is really the secret sauce here. After that, we'll get into the numbers, take a look at their growth strategy, and finally, weigh the very real risks involved. So, first things first, what even is GoTo? Well, it's not really a single company. Think of it as the result of a blockbuster merger between two of Indonesia's biggest tech legends. The whole thing is built on three massive, powerful pillars. Okay, so let's look at those three pillars. You've got Gojek, which is the on-demand super app for, well, pretty much everything. Rides, food, packages, you name it. Then you have Tokopedia, which is this enormous online marketplace, kind of like Indonesia's Amazon. And finally, you have GoTo Financial, which is the glue that holds it all together with digital payments through things like GoPay. Each one of these is a beast in its own right. Now here's where it gets really clever. These three parts don't just exist side by side. Nope, they are designed specifically to feed into each other, creating what the company loves to call its powerful ecosystem. And at the heart of that ecosystem is this concept they call the flywheel. Honestly, if you understand the flywheel, you understand GoTo's entire game plan. The idea is that growth in one part of the business, say e-commerce, directly fuels growth in another, like deliveries and payments. It creates this self-reinforcing cycle that just keeps spinning faster and faster. So let's see how this thing actually works in the real world. It starts when more merchants join Tokopedia. That means more products and better prices for you and me. That, of course, attracts more shoppers. More shoppers means more packages to deliver, which means more work for Gojek drivers. And here's the kicker. Every single one of those transactions is an opportunity to use GoPay, which generates a ton of data that helps GoTo improve its services, which, you guessed it, attracts even more merchants and customers. It's a loop. And look, this isn't just my take on it. This is straight from the horse's mouth. In their own IPO prospectus, GoTo basically says this flywheel effect is their superpower. It's their core competitive advantage and what makes the entire company more valuable than just its individual parts. All right, the strategy sounds great in theory, but what about the money? Let's decode the financials, because this is where the story gets really dramatic. You've got this massive tug of war between incredible growth and just as incredible spending. So on one side of the story, you have revenue growth that is just mind-blowing. If we just look at the Tokopedia part of the business before the big merger, revenue shot up by over 135% in 2019 and then more than doubled again in 2020. I mean, that's the kind of hyper-growth that gets investors really excited. But here's the other side of that coin. This is the central tension of the company. On the left, you see this massive scale, assets of over 148 trillion rupiah. But on the right, you see the cost of that growth. A loss of over 8 trillion rupiah in just 7 months. This is the textbook definition of a high-growth, high-burn business model. It costs a fortune to keep that flywheel spinning so fast. So you have to ask, where is all that money going? Well, the breakdown is pretty clear. The on-demand services, that's the Gojek side, eats up over 60% of the expenses. And it makes sense, right? Running a massive logistics and delivery network with millions of drivers costs an insane amount of money in promotions, incentives, and just raw operational costs. That's the fuel for the ecosystem. All of which leads us directly to their initial public offering, their IPO. When you're spending that much cash to grow that fast, you need a constant source of new capital. And the IPO was designed to be a massive tanker truck of fuel to pour directly onto that ecosystem flywheel. And if you want to know their strategy, just look at where they plan to spend that IPO money. It wasn't about fixing one broken part, it was about boosting the entire system. A big chunk for Tokopedia, another for GoPay, and more to expand Gojek internationally. It was all about making the whole ecosystem bigger, faster, and more integrated. But let's be real, no company this big and this ambitious comes without some serious risks. And if we're going to get the full picture, we have to look at the challenges that GoTo itself points out to its own investors. And to their credit, they are pretty transparent about the potential pitfalls. They talk about their dependency on Apple and Google's app stores, the ferocious competition they face in every single market, and they're very blunt about their history of losing money and the fact that profitability isn't guaranteed, ever. It's a classic high-risk, high-reward bet. Now, there's one particular risk here that's really important for anyone buying the stock on the public market. It's this structure called multiple voting shares. Basically, a small, exclusive group of founders and early backers hold a special class of shares that give them 30 votes for every 1 vote a regular shareholder gets. What does that mean? It means that even after going public, the insiders remain firmly, and I mean firmly, in control of the company's destiny. So, when you put it all together, it really boils down to this one massive question. Is GOTO's amazing, interconnected ecosystem a truly self-reinforcing engine for growth that's destined to dominate the region? Or is it a brilliantly complex machine that is simply too expensive and too difficult to ever run profitably? The answer to that question is going to be fascinating to watch.